Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Friday show. Some basketball on a Friday. You're chilling out, relaxing. The work week is over. You're getting yourself a brewski. And oh, look, there's basketball games starting. And oh, look, there's an opportunity to put some player props, some wagers on the game on the line or play a DFS lineup today. And what you doing? You're going to probably do it. We're going to smack you around. We're going to give you the top 8 plays in the day right now, starting right away. Lovely morning, lovely afternoon, lovely night, whenever you're watching this, to you, the beautiful person out there. Right away with the number 8 play on the day. And that number 8 play for me, which is pretty crazy that he's all the way down at number 8, is going to be Kevin Durant at just $9,600, and it's because he's just $9,600. I mean, Kevin Durant was $9,300 last time we saw him. I kept laughing and saying, wow, a guy that you could play at small forward, the best player on the slate, arguably a top 3, top 2, top 1 player in the NBA right now. And his price goes from $9,400 to $9,300. Now they're actually getting a little bit smarter, DraftKings. Now they're actually moving it to $9,600. And it's about damn time. I mean, this is the highest producer on this team. Yes, James Harden has the assist percentage on this team, but if we're talking fantasy point per minute production, a 1.44 fantasy point per minute producer with Harden on the court this season, and Kyrie. Kyrie gets the biggest bump downwards. So you're telling me that James Harden is going to be more expensive than Durant still, even though Durant has been producing. Durant has now scored 52.5 or more fantasy points in 3 straight games, and he didn't even get his full run in one of those games. Durant played 29 minutes in the last game before the Boston Celtics ended up getting blown out by Durant's Nets. The Nets won by 22, but it was much worse than that at points in the third and fourth quarter. So in 2 out of his last 3 games, he leaves in blowout run, only plays 29 minutes. And no, yeah, he's the contributing factor to that blowout. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense that Kevin Durant would be getting you there. Durant, for me today, grades out for 50.83 fantasy points, and I might be low on Durant because I'm not projecting in a blowout, but I'm only giving Durant 36 minutes of play today. We know if the game stays close based on game 1 that he could play 39 minutes, and that game wasn't that close. They ended up winning by 11. It was kind of close into the third quarter at halftime for the most part, right? And then the Nets actually made some shots in the second half. So Durant at 36 minutes of play grades out for over 50 fantasy points for me today. If you gave Kevin Durant 38 minutes of play, you think this game stays relatively closer, not like the last game where it was a massive blowout. Also, keep in mind, Kemba Walker is questionable today. Well, then Kevin Durant would move pretty quickly up to being around the number 4 play on the slate for me. Ladies and gentlemen, fellas, how you doing? Like and subscribe to this video. We will be live later today, an hour before the game starts, so the notification bell lets you know when we're doing all that motherfucking stuff. There's an insane amount of awesome holidays today. National Hamburger today. I don't know when you're not going to be putting cheese on that thing if you're lactose intolerant. Hey, a round of applause, a pat on the back for you out there. Here you go. This one's for you. But also National Brisket Day, National Cooler Day, National Road Trip Day. I mean, National Brisket Day for me personally. I'm in Texas now. I've only had brisket 2 or 3 times in my life. I really do like it. It's just in the Northeast, they don't have it. So I'm going to go out of my way to get myself a brisket today. Celebrate wisely. Celebrate something. The niche holiday yesterday, the purple popsicle day or some great popsicle day bullshit, right? You got to celebrate that just as nicely as when you get these days, right? It makes every day so much better. So without further ado, let's get into the rest of the top 8 plays on the slate today. I appreciate you all, as always, tuning into this here show. The number 7 play in the day for me is going to be Evan Fournier, who we really liked last time out, but unfortunately this game, and here's the thing, if you do think that this game is going to blow out, it is not an insane spread. It's an 8-point spread, but for the playoffs, that is a pretty far spread, right? Kevin Durant's Brooklyn Nets has a 117.5 team implied total. They're 8-point favorites over the Boston Celtics, a 109.5 team implied total today. But Evan Fournier is a very, very cheap price. A very, very cheap price point today. I know it's rose a little bit, a couple $100s, but a cheap price point today, who is a factor, and basically every single starter on both sides of this game was hit by the blowout in that last game. But Fournier, since the trade deadline when he came over from Orlando, and with no Jaylen Brown on the court, which is going to happen today, has played the 3rd most minutes on this team. A decent amount of minutes, 393 minutes, and he's averaged 0.91 fantasy points per minute. 0.91 fantasy points per minute is quality. It's quality when you factor in that when Evan Fournier played 39 minutes in game 1 when the game stayed close, and I only have him at 36 minutes of play today. Evan Fournier, for me, grades out for 33.2 fantasy points. Again, he can play more minutes here. Again, if Kemba's out, the point per minute production goes to about a fantasy point or above that. It all really comes down to if this game stays close, and if you personally out there right now in the streets believe that it stays close. His teammate might make for a better play for you specifically, and that's because he's a little bit cheaper, and that's Marcus Smart, who's the number 6 play on the slate. The whole blowout and all that stuff goes into effect as well, but Marcus Smart's minutes are probably a little bit more secure, and the reason being is he's probably the best defender on the court on either side of this game. He might be the best defender on the entire slate today. Marcus Smart, the Bulldog, going out there, going to try his best against Kyrie Irving, going to try his best against James Harden. Unfortunately for Smart, there's no Jaylen Brown who's good on defense, and there's no 4 other Marcus Smarts on the court. But Marcus Smart locks in more minutes because of his defensive ability, and he's fine on offense. He's a great assist type of a player to set guys up like Jason Tatum and maybe an Evan Fournier. So Marcus Smart today, I gave him 37 minutes, a little bit more than some of the other guys on his team, like a Kemba, like a Fournier. So at $5,900, now he's not as good of a producer as a Kemba or a Tatum, but he's very similar to Fournier, about a 0.9 fantasy point per minute producer on the season. If we were to look at the exact same chart that I just showed you, you would see that Marcus Smart actually plays the second most minutes on this team since the trade deadline with no Brown. And you can see that Marcus Smart, if we slide on over to Marcus Smart right here, 0.87 fantasy points per minute. So this is how many fantasy points per minute on average he is scoring. It's very similar to Fournier. It's a little bit different, but very similar to Fournier. And when you factor in that he is $300 cheaper, when you factor in also that I gave him about an extra minute of play, these guys look like very similar projections today. I have Marcus Smart for 31.7 fantasy points. It's about a point or a point and a half different than Fournier, but he's $300 cheaper, so he will grade out as the number 6 overall play, a little bit different there. Now, the number 5 overall play is going to be one that is not a yes. He is the only guy in this top 8 that is not a yes. And what a yes means for me is that they are more of a priority for me. Later in the day, that changes when we get any news maybe, which there might be some today. Kleba, Ibaka, and Kemba are all questionable. Jeff Green is actually out. So this is the first time that we've had some impactful news. No matter what, Jeff Green being out is 18 to 22 minutes out of a playoff rotation for the Nets, where I assume a lot of their guys are just going to pick up those runs. But another guy that might pick up a minute because there being no Jeff Green, or a minute or two, is the number 5 play in the day for me today from the Brooklyn Nets, and that is Nicholas Claxton. Nicholas Claxton, we talked about it last time out. Nicholas Claxton was going to see 16 to 17 minutes in that game 1, but he got in foul trouble, and he only played 11 minutes. But he was on pace. He was on pace to play that, right? They are not playing DeAndre Jordan anymore. It makes sense. DeAndre Jordan's there because he was a part of a deal. The only reason he went to Brooklyn, if you're not familiar, is because Kevin Durant's close friends with him, and that was kind of the deal. Kevin Durant says, I come here if you go get my guys. You have Kyrie, you go get now my fella out there, DeAndre Jordan. He's my buddy. He makes me feel at home, right? Same exact thing with Jeff Green. These guys played back in the day on the Oklahoma City Thunder. Go get Jeff Green. And Jeff Green's a fine player, already gets some minutes. But Nicholas Claxton was hurt all season long, and he started to come back for them. He played 11 minutes because of foul trouble. He picked up 2 quick personal fouls, and then he had a couple turnovers, and then the game just kind of went its separate way. But in game 2, he played 18 minutes, and about 16 to 17 of those were not in foul trouble. And now there's no Jeff Green, who's been playing 20 minutes a game, who plays some small ball 5. It'll be interesting to see how many more minutes Nicholas Claxton can play, because they can match him up against Robert Williams. Not so much against Tristan Thompson, but I wouldn't doubt it. So Nicholas Claxton, about a point per minute producer on the season today, has the ability at $3,100 to get you there. Like, I don't have him for many fantasy points. I have him for 16.7 fantasy points. But at $3,100 on a 3-game slate, that will allow you to play up and pay up for 1-2 studs and really get different, because I don't expect Claxton to pick up much ownership today. I also don't expect Claxton to start today, but I wouldn't be shocked if he starts at the 5. Don't be shocked if DeAndre Jordan makes a spot start at the 5 for 6 minutes just to start this game off and match up against one Tristan Thompson. But Claxton is our number 5 play on the slate. Now, I don't have any player props on Claxton today, right? But I do have a player prop from one of his teammates today. And I'll be honest with you, my props yesterday, they stunk. All three of them lost. We lost by a half a point on one. Giannis got 13 rebounds in the first half when I had the under 13.5 on him. They've been stinking. The last 2 days haven't hit a damn player prop. So caution to the wind by seeing this one, but here we go. I have a 2-pick right now power play, aka parlay right now. Joe Harris, we're going back to him. He's the last player prop I hit 2 days ago. We love it. Over 11.5 points. He had that in the first 6 minutes. We got him at over 12.5 today, not because he did that last game, but because he grades out for me for closer to 14.2 real life points today. And then I have Trae Young at home, so this is the dangerous part. They're going back home to Atlanta now, but under 26.5 points, real life points, not fantasy points. I have Trae Young today at 23.8, so it's a pretty significant under. I took those 2 props. If you want to take them, you can take them. I would recommend using Prize Picks. It's a platform linked down below. They sponsor this here program. If you use the code SAL when you sign up, SAL, I know you've been hearing me say it, but if you're not already, what you're doing, if you use the code SAL when you sign up, you can take this prop, or you can take any other props that you want to. But when you use that code, your first deposit up to $100 Rooskies, you hear that? Up to a free $100 Rooskies will be doubled. You put in $25, now you have 50. Put in 100, now you have 200. And if you're in New York, or as of last weekend, so this is your first week ever, you have legal sports betting on this platform only right now. They're running the streets of New York, if you will, like the motherfucking Italian mob, the mafia back in the motherfucking 60s and 50s. So, Prize Picks, code SAL, S-A-L, gets you that bonus. I don't have anything on Claxton, but I have it on his teammate Joe Harris over right now, 12.5 real points, under on the Trae Young real prop points. Check it out. Make it $Rooskies, and let's win a motherfucker. It's been 2 days. Joe Harris, you were the last time I won. Please do get me off of this cold streak of 2 days of just throwing my money at the Prize Picks machine. My number 4 play on the slate is on the screen right now. Yes, he is indeed on the New York Knicks, and yes, he is my only current yes from the New York Knicks. Now, I do have 6 guys from the Knicks in a player pool early on right now today, but Derrick Rose, they're finally trying to get his price point up. They raised it by $500 since the last game. They've now raised it by $900 since game 1 when he started the playoffs at $5,500. But if you can see on the screen right now, I have Derrick Rose today for 36 minutes. Derrick Rose in his first 2 games. Elfrid Payton has made 2 spot starts. He's played 8 and 5 minutes. He's basically out of this rotation right now. RJ Barrett is not playing his 38 and 39 minutes right now in the postseason. They're going to veterans who score like Alec Burks, Derrick Rose, Reggie Bullock to an extent. And RJ Barrett at this point, he's playing minutes, but he's playing 32 minutes, and that seems to be stable. Game 1, I thought maybe because these Derrick Rose and Alec Burks types were hot, but they've stayed hot through 2 games now. So maybe a little bit RJ Barrett, you can get him at a ownership discount today. But Derrick Rose has played 38 and 39 minutes in the first 2 games that have stayed close in the series. The series is tied at 1. This is a very fun series to be watching, especially when they've been at home at MSG in Manhattan. But I have Derrick Rose today at a point per minute. I only have him at 36 minutes. I just told you he's played 38 and 39. Sal, why aren't you projecting him for 38 and 39? Because that's his play when the games stay close down the stretch and he plays the final 12 minutes of the game. That's not going to happen every single game, right? But in the playoffs, you can argue that it will. The spread of this game, you can argue 4-point spread that it will. So project him for 2 more minutes if you like. I already have him projecting out highly for me. I've got Derrick Rose today at 35.53 fantasy points, and that makes him the number 4 play on the slate pretty convincingly. If I was to give him 38 minutes, right, that he's had 38 and 39 in the last 2 games, if I was to give him 38 minutes today, Derrick Rose today would project out as my number 1 play in the slate. So take that as you will. Take that as you will when you look at ownership today. Derrick Rose is looking absolutely fantastic today. Continues to be a point per minute producer playing massive minutes on this Knicks team. Now let's get into the top 3, and they're going to be very similar options as we've been saying because they're just not changing the price points on these guys. Please just change the price points on these guys. Okay, you change the price point by $200 on Kawhi Leonard. He's $8,500. Kawhi Leonard is down 2-0 in the series. He's going to play basically every goddamn minute out there. He's already doing that to begin with. Since the trade deadline, Kawhi Leonard actually hasn't played too many minutes. He's been injured. He sat some games, but Kawhi Leonard has played 580 minutes. Still pretty decent, but not anywhere near tops on his team. But he's averaging 1.28 fantasy points per minute. That's basically where he's been at on the season. But I'm not even giving him that today. I'm giving him 1.22 fantasy points per minute. I'm giving him below his production. But the reason why he looks so good, and you can see him on the screen right now, is because he's played 41 minutes in the first 2 games. They're down 2-0 in this series. Even if the game blows out, it's probably because of Kawhi Leonard, and it's probably because he's going off in 36 minutes of play, right? I got him at 40 minutes today. I got him at 1.2 fantasy points per minute. If you just take out your calculators, your handy-dandy calculators right there, that's going to project out pretty easily for 48 plus fantasy points. I got him at 48.7 today. At $8,500, Kawhi Leonard right now remains $1,000 to $1,500 underpriced. I'm sorry, this is the Jimmy Butler effect. We saw Butler play fine yesterday. This is the Kawhi Leonard effect of the past. This guy is an elite producer. He is arguably a $10,000 player. He should be the price point of Kevin Durant, $9,600 today based on my projection for him, but he's just not. Expect top 2 to top 1 ownership today on Kawhi Leonard, and expect to be playing it in small field events and in cash today, and the props look fine on Kawhi as well. Kawhi Leonard is the number 3 play in the slate because of that. The number 2 play on the slate is going to be Maxi Kleber today. We need some value somewhere. So Maxi Kleber today provides that value for a man that's playing big minutes, for a man that actually plays good defense, and that's why he's on the court. Sam, why are they playing Maxi Kleber? He stinks at fantasy. Yeah, well, he plays great defense. This is the postseason. It's the same reason why Montrezl Harrell hasn't played in the last 2 games for the Lakers, and he doesn't even spread the floor like Marc Gasol has been on there and plays a little bit better defense. But Maxi Kleber has played 36 and 34 minutes. The first 2 games. He's combined. He's combined for 70 minutes of play. And he's played fine, right? He's getting enough minutes, so he scored 23.75 and 23.5 DraftKings points. And you know what his price point has done? It's come up from $3,500 to $3,700. So nothing crazy there. Kleber for me today, I have him projecting out for his worst performance of the playoffs so far, but it still makes him my second best player on the slate because I'm giving Kleber today, I'm only giving him 32 minutes. He's played 36 and 34. So I have his minutes dropping yet again. So potentially under projecting his minutes, and right now that's going to lead me to have him at 21.23 fantasy points. Now this is only like a 0.7 fantasy point per minute producer, but he's going to have secure minutes. Outside of foul trouble and outside of an insane blowout, his defense keeps him on the court. He actually matches up against Kawhi Leonard. And it might not work out too well, but they have no other options out there. Dorian Finney-Smith is on the court a lot as well for a specific reason. He plays fine defense. He fits into his role. So expect Kleber to see 32 plus minutes. Expect him even at his 0.7 fantasy point per minute projection and not a good matchup for him and focusing more on the defensive end, even at 0.7 fantasy points per minute, which is not a good production rate, right? But because of those minutes, he's going to score 20 plus fantasy points more times than not. And now let me bring you to the numero uno play on this slate. He is Kawhi Leonard's teammate. He is cheaper than Kawhi Leonard today. He is a similarly productive player. He is averaging 1.2 fantasy points per minute on the season to Kawhi Leonard's 1.22. So basically, very similar productive players. They get there in different ways, but very similarly productive, and that is going to be PG-13 Paul George today. I have Paul George for 46.7 fantasy points. I have Paul George. Honestly, to be honest with you, Paul George, Maxi Kleber, and Kawhi Leonard are kind of in a tier of their own. They're all like 1A, 1B, 1C in terms of my value ratings today. They're all yeses for me today. If you want to see who exactly is the total yeses and how these guys' projections will change and their leverage scores and all that type of stuff and their ranks and all that, come into the live stream later today. And also sign up for Patreon. We have projections, ranks, ownership, a bunch of stuff linked down below. You can check it out. We have a big energy optimizer, which is massive, massive help for building the best possible lineups you could build and not putting your own biases into it and actually winning money and stop throwing your money away. Lots of stuff, the Discord access, check it all out, link down below. Paul George at $8,100 today. On the screen right now, you can see Paul George. I have him for 39 minutes, one of 3 players on this team for 30-plus minutes. It is him, the before-mentioned Kawhi Leonard, and Marcus Morris at 30 minutes flat. Paul George at a 1.2 fantasy point per minute projection that I have him at today. He will be a little bit streakier. He is obviously notoriously known for not being or playing well in the postseason. 39 minutes might actually be low on him for a guy who's down 2-0 in a series. We just saw Paul George play back-to-back games of 40 minutes, so you can tell me you want to play him a little bit more. But Paul George coming off of a 40 fantasy point day and a 55 fantasy point day. And he's not even playing well is the crazy part. Paul George is not even playing that well right now. He's playing fine, but not playing well. Shot 44% and 54%. That's fine. But from three-point land, he shot 14%, 1 of 7, and 2 of 8. 25%. He has shot so far in the playoffs 3 of 15 from three-point land. Absolutely terrible. 20%. That is clearly going to come up. And he's going to continue to get these shot attempts because he's Paul motherfucking George on this team. He's going to see 20 shot attempts today. He's going to start to get his three-pointers to land. So for a guy who scored 40 and 55 fantasy points in his first 2 days without the three-ball landing at all, taking 7+ attempts in 2 games, you can expect that number to come up and come up significantly. His rebounding rate, which has already been great, right? 12, 6, and 10 rebounds in his last 3 games. That will also go up if Serge Ibaka, who's questionable, only been playing 12, 14, 15 minutes so far in the postseason, but who is questionable today if he was to miss, that's only going to go up as well. So Paul George, the number 1 play in the slate today, and if that 3 balls finally starts to regress back to at least average, he's going to score at ease 45+ fantasy points. So thank you for tuning in to the video today of this 3-game Friday slate. Before you go, be sure that you liked and be sure that you subscribe to this here YouTube channel. We have NFL content coming out today from a draft perspective. We're going to be doing an underdog draft live around noon Eastern time, so be sure to check that one out. And also, NFL content will be starting on Monday. Now that we're in the month of June, the great month of June is here. Live stream later today, an hour before the game starts. Bring any of your questions. Hit me up in the Discord with any questions on player props today, betting lines, DFS, of course. And if you're not in the Discord, what are you waiting for? Sign up down below over on Patreon. You all rock. Support the sponsor of the program today. Prize Picks. Use that code SAL, S-A-L. You get that money match up to $100. Double your motherfucking money. Dollar Rooskies. Free dollar Rooskies for everybody out there. Come on, Joe Harris. Take us to the promised land today. Get us off of this 2-day motherfucking skid out there in the streets. You all rock. See you later on today. Assalamu alaikum, or however the fuck you say that word. I'm gonna go get me some motherfucking brisket. Happy National Brisket Day. Peace.